Three.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Logren. These are my note cards. Here's my audience. And then I'm doing my speech on the happiness hypothesis. Have you ever wondered about what key components go into happiness and what makes up your happiness? I know that everyone here has probably once in their life sat down and thought, what is making me feel this way in particular compared to the other day? Or what makes me more sad this day than the other day? Well, I recently read the book, The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. He goes on to explain about how there's a certain formula in the book it's called the happiness formula, and it's by Martin Seligman. In the happiness hypothesis, it goes over how happiness is equal to your set range plus your conditions plus your voluntary actions. I'm going to go over all these in a little bit more depth. Right now it might be a little confusing, but I'll go into each point and hopefully by the end you'll understand fully everything. So anyway, I'm going to start with the set point. Now what this means in depth is more of like your genetics and your set hormone balance for everything, including like your chemicals in your brain. So a gene is the basic physical and functional unit of heredity. And now the reason why I'm doing this is because genes make up our hormones. Now, in a article from 2015 on the National Library of Medicine, stated by Dr. K. Page Hardin, states that the most straightforward relationship between genes and hormones is that genes code hormones. So basically, this includes the most important thing about happiness is serotonin, and that's like the big happiness hormone that we feel that gives us that feeling. And now I bring this up into my next point of this one is that trauma can influence how your hormones are set as you're raised. So for instance, if you suffer from a thing called PTSD, it'll decrease your serotonin levels and give you more stress, give you emotional confusedness, and it'll make you a little bit more anxious as you go. So in December 2011, a team of doctors, one named Dr. Murrow James, associated with the Library of Medicine, conducted a test that involved 90 people. 49 of them had PTSD, 20 of them were exposed to trauma, but not PTSD, and 27 of them were not trauma partisans, so they were just regular people. The test concluded in the end that the people who were exposed to trauma, compared to like everyone else, at a younger age had lower serotonin levels. So that kind of meant like as you're raised, if you grow up in an environment where you're stressed and you have trauma-related incidents, it's going to lower your serotonin levels and make you a less happier person. My next point is going to be about the conditions. So the conditions are basically what you have baseline and that you can't really change. So what you grow up in. So for instance, your race, your sex, your hair color, everything like that cannot be changed as you go along with it. So for instance, I'm going to bring up a example from the book that basically said your wealth class, for instance, as you're growing up, you're raised in a certain wealth class, whether it's lower class, middle class, or upper class. You can't really change it, and that's how you are raised. But whenever you get older, you can change however much you make and whatever kind of lifestyle you want to live. So for instance, he goes on to explain about Jonathan Haidt goes on to explain in the book about how the middle class versus the upper class, who would be more happier overall. And he found out that usually the middle class is more happier compared to the upper class because the upper class usually has everything they want by then. They don't have any goal that they have to strive for except for just sustaining their life. It's just very boring. But the middle class, for instance, always has a goal. And they always have something to grow off of and improve on, and something that they can always achieve. And that's going to be the same thing said for like the lower class, the middle class. But this can also be a little bit controversial because it also goes on to say about how money can influence happiness and materialistic things can, in some point, give you some form of happiness if you know where to spend it. But, so for instance, like the middle class is generally more of a happier mix than upper class versus lower class. And then finally, I'm going to go over the voluntary actions. So this is actions that you normally do in your everyday life. So this can go from being nice to people, gratifications, what you do every single day. So in the book, he goes on to explain about how you will genuinely be less happier if you're pursuing a goal where you like only the end goal. So you want a goal like where you're gonna strive for something and you're gonna enjoy the obstacles that are in it. Because if you don't, then you're gonna be a lot less happier while you're going through it. And then whenever you finally achieve it, it's like, okay, I did all that work, I got to where I am, and now what's really next? You know? And so, I don't know, I thought that was a really interesting point about how you always want a goal to keep in mind whenever you're going through something in life, no matter where it is, whether it's wealth, school, a goal, you always want to have something to strive for in this world. And it'll lead to you being a happier individual. And then, so in conclusion, I brought up the points about how the happiness formula, which is happiness equals the set point, the conditions, and the voluntary actions, make up what makes us happy individuals and what persuades us into being more happy or less happy. Hopefully by the end of this, you kind of learned that like the more that you strive for a goal, the more happy you will be, and the more you'll want to go on with life and to become a happy individual. And here are my note cards. Thank you.